Man, you are good. Oh, we got him, baby. Barbara, that is a beautiful walleye.
Nice, eh?
Wow. Ooh. Oh, he's almost too heavy to do that. Gorgeous fish. What a beautiful largemouth. Mwah. There you go, largemouth. Gone. Oh boy, get in the net. Oh, he jumped over the net. Okay. What a beautiful pike. Oh.
Let's go fishing. People, when you're in the mood, let's go fishing. Well, it's just me and you. Head on down to the fishing hole. Grab your hat, get your pole. Let's go fishing. When you're in the mood.
Canadian Sport Fishing, brought to you in part by Rapala, premium fishing gear crafted from experience. Duckett Fishing, pro-driven. Raymarine Electronics, Raymarine, simply superior. Pro Sports Boats, tame the waters.
You are so quiet in the back. You're doing great, Barb. Let's have a look at this fish. Oh, could be a pike, could be a walleye, could be a drum, could be a bass.
Could be.
No, he's got tons of energy. Oh, it looks like a walleye.
Really?
Yep.
Just a big one. Oh,
Yep.
He's got power.
Ooh, Barbara, good fish.
Oh.
Man, you are good. Oh, we got him, baby. Nice walleye, Barb.
Nice thick one.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. It was worth all those casts, Barb. Barbara, that is a beautiful walleye.
Nice, eh?
Wow.
I love to cast crankbaits, especially in the summertime when the water temperatures get warm, for a multitude of species, but primarily for walleye. We also get largemouth bass and smallmouth bass. And the one thing that I've told my friends, and that I'll share with you, there are two principles that I've always promoted, and these two things are really important. One has to do with cement. No matter how thick cement is, eventually it's going to crack, because of the metal that's used, the rebarb to reinforce it, you know, and just weather absorbing humidity and expanding and contracting with temperatures. And the other that has to do with fishing is that fish move. When I say that fish can move hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, and of course there are seasonal transitions. So over the years I've realized that try to understand fish as much as possible in their movements is really important to locating them, especially when I'm fishing crankbaits, because fish change their behavior as to what they eat. So at certain times of the year, they eat food that's available to them in greater amounts. For example, before the weeds start growing up, a lot of the bait fish and some of the fish that they're after, and I'm talking about piscivorous fish. These are fish that feed on smaller fish, like walleye, bass, pike, muskie, and so on. When there's no weeds, those fish, the smaller fish, are usually in deeper water. And for a lot of the forage fish are the ones that I'm referring to that are like gizzard shad, smelts, alewife, spot-tail shiners, different types of emerald shiners that school and can suspend in the water column. So before the weeds grow up, a lot of those fish are out in the open. And even the panfish are out in deeper water. So at that time of the year, it's better to troll for the fish, use bottom bouncers and, you know, worm harnesses and so on, and even body baits. But when the weeds start growing and there's a lot of plankton activity, a lot of the small fish, the whole food chain is attracted to the vegetation. Also the vegetation that's growing and that's green is producing oxygen. So, and really, the oxygen is so important in all those little microorganisms that the bait fish and even the smaller panfish and then the larger panfish and smaller game fish will feed on. So as soon as the weeds start growing up, I start casting towards the weeds. And as summer progresses and we get the algae blooms where there's a lot of algae on the surface, some people call it pea soup days, because you can actually cut a line with your line in the algae that's on the surface and you see it like snow in the water. To me, that's one of the best times to cast crankbaits. So let me tell you first about fishing shallow water weeds. So the first point I'd like to make is that when fish feed on crankbaits, or when you catch them on crankbaits, when they're feeding on smaller fish, they're not always at the same depth. So number one is that when they're in shallow water, and that's usually early and late in the day, or when you have full algae blooms and there's very little sunlight penetration that goes down 4, 5, 6 feet into the water. And trust me, I've snorkeled, and sometimes even in 6 feet of water, you've got to be like 1 inch or 2 inches away from the bottom to even see it. So visibility is very poor. That's when I cast shallow running crankbaits. And the two that I'm holding up, this is a Dives 2. It's a flat series from Rapala, and it's a Dives 2 3. It'll actually go a little bit deeper than that. And this one is that Ott's Garage Rocco. So you'll notice that this one has a wider body, so it's kind of fat. This one is very slim, flat. The two things that these lures have in common is that they don't have rattles, they're made out of wood, and they suspend really well. So when you're fishing shallow water, you don't want a lure that'll go down too deep because it'll get caught in the weeds. And those walleye, especially, and even bass, that are cruising into the shallow weeds, they're not down close to the bottom. They're suspended. So if it's in 5 feet of water, they might be down 2 feet, 3 feet, only a couple of feet off the bottom. So these shallow running crankbaits work best. So it's good to be equipped with some that only will run down about 3, 4 feet when you're fishing in shallower water. Yes! You know, this casting crankbaits is amazing. Got a really nice walleye. Don't know if I can lift him in the boat. I'm gonna try. Hopefully he won't break my leader. Oh, look at this. I didn't have my net out because I'm just testing a new spot. And I got this gorgeous walleye on. Yeah, just threw the lure. So that walleye was on that Ott's Garage Rocco. That lure is so amazing for this shallow water weed fishing. I'm going to show you this walleye. Beautiful fish. Look at this. Isn't that a gorgeous fish? Beautiful walleye. Middle of the day, just fishing about 4 or 5 feet of water with the shallow running crankbait, and it can produce walleye just like this.
I got one. Can you tell? Come on. What are you? I'm hoping it's a nice walleye. Oh, Barb, remember I talked about a drum? Looks like a drum. And that's okay. They fight good. And he's hooked very lightly. I don't think so. I'm going to just grab the line and bring him up. He's not a monster, but he hit well, fought hard, and if he drops off, it's okay. Oh, he did, right in the boat. That is a nice drum. Barb, look at how colorful he is. If I can get him up here. You beautiful fish, I'm going to throw you back. Don't spine me. Okay. Okay, fishy. Okay, fishy. Guess what, Barb? He's got tons of energy. Yeah. Barb, look how beautiful he is. Wow. Nice drum. Bye-bye, drum.
As summer progresses and the weeds are really high, you know, sometimes we'll find weed beds and weed lines that are growing in 12 to 15 feet of water. And a lot of times they're very close to very deep water. And I find as the summer progresses and you're getting into fall, a lot of the weeds start dying off. And those walleye that are in deeper water and that have been feeding shallow will actually move into deeper water and only come into the weed lines to feed. So how do you get down to those fish that are 12 to 15 feet down? Well, you know, fishing for the last 45 years in the eastern basin of Lake Ontario, this has been one of my top producers. This is called a tail dancer. It's a number 9, so it's 9 centimeters long, and the hot chub color. You can see the lip, it's got like a banana lip on it. This lure has amazing action like this, and also flash at the same time like this, back and forth. So I cast this lure with 20-pound braid, and it'll dive down to about, on a long cast, let's say of about 70, 80 feet, it'll dive down to about 13, 15 feet. because of the braided line. It helps to dive a little bit deeper. If you use monofilament line, an 8 to 10 pound test, you probably won't get, you might get as far a cast, but it probably won't dive down as deep. So one of the things that I have to talk about, you know, when it comes to using crankbaits is the importance of using a no stretch line. And I use on all of my rods the Suffix 832, mostly in 20 pound test. It only has about 6 pound test diameter for monofilament. So it's very thin. You can cast really far if your spool is spooled upright to within 1/8 of an inch of the rim. And it also allows the lure to dive to its maximum running depth and sometimes even a little bit more. So I find that the braided line works well for castability, also for setting the hook because there's very little stretch. And also, if you hit a weed, if you snap your rod with a tight line, you should be able to cut the weed unless you get into a whole bunch of weeds, and then that weed will float to the surface. Because pretty well all aquatic vegetation has air that's caught up in it because the vegetation is trying to get up to where the sunlight is. So as soon as you cut one, it'll come to the surface. So all these are really important tips when using crankbaits. And you know what? I've used crankbaits for almost 45 years. Even in the old days when they had very simple crankbaits, the Rapala had the metal lip crankbaits, you know. And then now there's so many crankbaits and the lifelike colors and all shapes and sizes and very specific diving range crankbaits. I find that for fish that eat other fish, crankbaits is the way to go. Also, I love it when I'm hunting for fish that are hunting for food. So these guys are not dopey. They're not laying in one spot. The walleye are probably moving at 1 to 2 miles an hour, and if they see something, they'll hit it, just like that. And the hits that we get with crankbaits are usually like a musky hit, really hard. They fight hard, especially on a medium or medium heavy, either a bait caster or a spinning rod. So those are some really good tips when using crankbaits and fishing the weeds that are in different depths at different times of the year.
Oh, it's a big one. Ooh.
Big pike. Big
That's
pike.
a walleye.
That's a big pike. It's long.
Yes.
It's long. Oh, he ate your crankbait. I don't know.
Swallowed it.
I don't know, Barb. I don't know, Barb.
Big walleye.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh, it's going to try to jump. Oh boy, get in the net. Oh, he jumped over the net.
He jumped over.
Okay. You know what? He's a handful, Barb.
Oh, he's a thick one. Oh my goodness, he's thick.
Oh my goodness. What a beautiful pike. Oh. And he ate it. Let me see here. Is he going to cut the line? Oh, wow. I don't see the lure, Barb.
When walleye are feeding in slightly deeper water or weeds that are, let's say, 5 to 8 feet deep, and you're trying to cast around the weeds, especially the thicker weeds or off the weed edge, I use a crankbait that dives slightly deeper. So here's a series of crankbaits that are some of my favorite. This is the Storm Smash Shad. You can see it looks a lot like the Shad Wrap. This one is a number 7, so it dives down to about 7 feet. And you can see that it's got a longer lip than the first 2 lures that I showed you. This one is called a Dives to Thug, and you can see the lip on it and the angle of the lip. So both these lures have a nice wobble. The wobble is on the wider side like this, and especially the Thug. You can see the wobble is much wider. When I look at my rod tip, a lot of times you'll see your rod tip doing this. That's the perfect action for reeling in a lure, and I'll talk a little bit about lure speed in a minute. But I find that those shallow running crankbaits that I spoke to about earlier, they'll work great when the walleyes are only 2 or 3 feet below the surface. And there are times when we're fishing these shallow weeds, and our lure dives down to about 3-4 feet, and you'll bring the lure in, and a walleye will hit literally at the boat when that lure is in the top 2 feet. So I'm a firm believer that that fish wasn't following that lure up to the boat. It just intercepted it about halfway to the boat because it was coming up to the right depth. Because obviously when you cast out, the lure is shallow, runs down a little bit deeper, and then as you get closer to the boat and your line gets shorter, it comes right back up to you. So having crankbaits that dive down that 5 to 7 foot depth are ideal to cover those fish that are in slightly deeper water off the weeds.
Is this bikini walleye fish? Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
What a beautiful
Get him
fish.
to your right. I was going to say, is this bikini walleye fishing or what?
Sure is.
A little bit more to your right. He needs to land it. He needs to land
Ready,
it.
ready, ready.
Oh boy.
Yeah, up, scoop, scoop. You got it
Scoop the walleye. Scoop the walleye. Scoop the walleye.
What a walleye.
Okay.
Wow.
Look at this.
Is it a good eating size?
That's a big one.
That's a big one. I think it's over 25 inches. We're
Might
going to
be
let it
going
go.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, good net job.
Good job.
Theo.
Jessica,
Yeah,
good job.